Welcome to this very special Labor Day weekend edition of the Armstrong-Williams Show. The Executive Vice President of the AFL-CIO in Connecticut, Shelley Davis, will join us along Man on the Street and some other interesting discussions about the real meaning of Labor Day, which is often forgotten. Ms. Davis, thank you so much for joining us for this edition, this special edition of the Armstrong-Williams Show. You're the Executive President, Vice President of the AFL-CIO in Connecticut. In Connecticut. You know, we're celebrating Labor Day. And Labor Day and the AFL-CIO and labor takes on more meaning, and so much is lost why Labor Day exists. And we want to put Labor Day, why it exists, and why people have this holiday.
So for us, labor is just the fabric and fiber of what everybody does, working people do every day, right? You try to do the best you can to take care of your family. What we strive for is for people to be well, to be healthy, to be able to put food on their table and have dignity and respect and have paychecks, right? That they know that they can count on. So Labor Day, what we do is we think about those that we've lost. We've lost a lot of people just for hazard, working hazard. And so we can't take anything for granted. So for us, Labor Day is a day to sit back and reflect on all of the benefits we have, how we got those benefits, and how we continue to have them, the things we need to do to continue to be able to fight to have the benefits we have every day. It's a reflection.
How have the labor laws over the decades have changed for the better work conditions for the laborer?
So let me say this. For what we do, the benefits that our members have, they're never alone in anything, right? When you have issues that come up where people get put out of work for just because of how they show up. We have a lot of issues with corporations, companies that don't respect workers, and it's just the reality. Not all, but some. And so what we need to do is make sure that people have that dignity and respect. So for the laws that we work for, we work really hard to make sure that it's correct for the working people, just for the dignity and respect.
How much has the urgency of labor and Labor Day weekend and the protection of workers, how has that been impacted by COVID-19?
COVID-19 impacted a lot. It actually changed everybody's life, just at an instant, right? We lost a lot of people in various places, especially our essential workers who couldn't do Zoom, that had to show up. Our nurses, our firefighters, our police, people that had to show up, right? We lost a lot of them, and so the urgency after the vaccinations, or not, it's an urgency now to just protect people and make sure that people are okay. And we're still coming back from the COVID. We're not where we were. You have a lot of people working from home. You have businesses that went out of business because they couldn't sustain things. The restaurant industry is still hurting really hard to come back, right?
In your neighboring state of New York, Mayor Adams decided to terminate many first-line responders because they refused to be vaccinated and follow the COVID protocols. How do you, as a person that represents, and the union that represents laborers, what about the advice? What happens when someone who's put everything on the line and they lose their life because they feel their own freedom of speech and their freedom of choice is being challenge that if you don't do so, then you'll lose your way of life?
So personally, the way I feel, I think that's a big issue. I'm not from New York, so that doesn't affect the people I represent. But to answer your question, I don't think that was a fair call at all. I don't think that you can. We had a lot of people based on medical conditions and other reasons why they couldn't take the vaccination, right? And so based on confidentiality and all those things, I don't think people needed to explain why I can't do it. But he's newly elected. Those were his views and his thoughts, and people allowed him to do it.
What is talk about in close, because obviously you have a very important role with the AFL-CIO. You've been with them for some time. Talk about your role going in this position, how you became a part of the AFL-CIO, and why you remain and continue to be a strong voice of leadership in their corporate structure.
So I started out AFT. I'm a member of AFTO, so I still am a paraeducator in the Hartford Public Schools. So you're talking about people that make low wages regardless if they have degrees or not. 96 credits, they stop paying you going forward on that, right? Being a woman of color, you see and you are a part of a lot of injustices that happen in life, and that's just the way it's been, right? I got my start. I had a union rep, and I had a principal that just didn't really care for me and made life very difficult for me. And I had to call the union rep in, and that's really where I got involved in the union. Had I not had a union, I wouldn't have had a job. And it wasn't because I wasn't performing. It was simply because someone didn't like me and didn't like the skin color that I showed up in every day, right? And so for me, after going through that, I never wanted anybody else to ever go through what I went through or feel that way. And that was why I stepped up. Where I am now in AFL is AFL-CIO, so people can have their benefits, have the respect and the decency, and know that they matter and they're valued. And I think that's just what we need to do as humans, to value each other and make sure everybody's okay. And I think if we did that, we'd be in a better place and it would be a different world if we just actually really cared about the human nature of people.
You know, for me, as a broadcast owner and a broadcaster, I've been pretty harsh when it comes to unions and unionizing. And I think probably this is the first time I've sat down with someone of your caliber in a union. And sometimes we as the media don't always show both sides to this. I mean, when you talk about your own plight as a teacher and the principal just made a decision not to like you, had nothing to do with your skills and you're doing your job, unions still play a very important role in this country. And it's not always the narrative that they fleece their workers of their monies and their resources. They don't really represent their interests. There are corporations. I mean, you look at the practices of Amazon, what they do to their employees. I mean, you just look at what happened in these coal mines and the standards. You need to have a structure in place to protect the worker. Now, we all can strive to do better and better serve our constituency, but the union still plays a very important role in our country.
We do, and we will continue to do as such.
How do we better educate people about unions?
So we need to sit and have those one-on-one conversations, right? And so when we have new members that come in that start, like paraeducators that start working, we reach out to them. We have a conversation and see where it is they want to go, what they want to do, and to let them know their rights, their benefits, you know, the things that we can help them do, and to always know that they're never alone, right? It's always good if you start a new job to be with people that can help you better yourself, right? And the people that do that are those that have the experience, that have been there. So you're absolutely right. Unions are so important. And we just need to educate people, one-on-one conversations, and just continue the conversation, right? And for us, the leaders have to have the conversations in partnership with the other side of the table, because we're all in this together.
You know, I'm going to take sort of get away from, as I wrap this, from the unions. You know, you're a former educator in the public schools. How do we make sure that every child learns, every child gets an education? Because you were educated enough to know your rights. You knew you were being mistreated. Some people just don't know. They don't know the law. They don't understand the law. They don't understand practices that should not be in the workplace. How do we get schools to educate?
We have to start with our babies at a very early age. And that comes from, you know how we grew up with respect. You had the neighborhood, you had the people that cared. What has happened now, the village has moved all over the place, right? And so we don't have the structures in place where every child always got what they needed, whether it came from the house they lived in or the next door or the store on the corner, right? We have to look at our children and we have to go back to basics and talk to them. We let our kids really raise ourselves in a lot of issues. And there are a lot of reasons for that, right? We have systematic racism, we have poverty. There are a lot of reasons why people are in the conditions they're in. But you become a product of your environment. And if your environment isn't helping you grow, it's killing you. It's just that simple. So we have to reach back and just start teaching our young people at a very early age.
Ms. Davis, thank you so much for joining us for this very special Labor Day weekend special on the Armstrong Williams Show. We wish you well, and hopefully we'll speak to you in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And we'll be back. Don't go away.
My name is Evelyn Hershey, and I am the Education Director at the American Labor Museum Bato House National Landmark in Haledon, New Jersey. So we call ourselves the only labor museum in the nation. The labor movement and working people have built this nation. We can look around our communities and see everyday workers all the time who deliver our mail, who bring essential goods and services to our homes. And so the American labor movement, working people, is the backbone that has built up our nation, often overlooked, like the Labor Day holiday. Labor Day is a special American holiday that was established by President Grover Cleveland, who lived in New Jersey for a time. He signed the holiday, made it a national federal holiday in 1894. The labor movement started Labor Day in 1882, and there is a controversy of a minor sort about who is the father of Labor Day. Labor Day, the first Labor Day parade took place in New York City on September 5th in 1882. In May of that year, the leaders met and discussed having a special celebration at the end of the summer, halfway between 4th of July holiday and Thanksgiving holiday, and what they considered to be one of the more pleasant times of the year. So there is still to this day, and I can show you from the museum's archives, publications that we have from various years, Carpenters Union arguing that their leader, Peter J. McGuire, founded Labor Day, and the machinists arguing that Matthew McGuire was the father of Labor Day. And if I may read part of what Peter J. McGuire intended for the day, he proposed, and these are his words, that Labor Day should be observed as a festal day for tribute to the genius of American industry. It should be dedicated, he said, to peace, civilization, and the triumphs of industry. He saw among the members of his union and of New York City workers and workers around the country, this great workforce that was patriotic and looking forward to building America to be an even greater country. So we know in the 19th century, working conditions, you can see over my shoulder, there are black and white photographs of textile workers at the lower part of the picture, workers in a dye shop, putting a color into silk here in Paterson, New Jersey. And those workplaces were extremely hazardous to one's health. There were no provisions for the health and safety of those workers. The hours were 10 and 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And the workers were not earning what we would call today a living wage. So poverty was a familiar part of these workers' lives. So an 8-hour day fight became a very broad fight around the country for better working conditions, for a voice in the workplace. There's always periods of repeating history. And we can see that now in changes in industry and work culture. And then we can look at organizing movements in Starbucks, in Amazon, and in fields, other service fields, janitors who are joining the service employees union, SEIU. There are always changes in the economy and new workforces that grow in size. And these new workers look to the past, but also use the tools that they have available to them, social media, new technology to organize.
Labor Day? Wait, like Labor Day that's coming up? The day we get off of school?
Oh,
Yeah.
probably nothing.
Uh,
Probably just
for Labor Day, we're probably going to be doing absolutely nothing.
probably go to the pool.
Maybe catching up on some homework because we don't have classes that day.
What do I think of Labor Day as a holiday? As a federal holiday and as a former federal employee, I think it's awesome. I think it represents, in my opinion anyway, it represents a day for the labor. I had the opportunity to live in Europe, and I know there's a Labor Day there as well for the workers, so I think it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Labor Day is important in general, like what it stands for. I guess, yeah, I think it's just important to have a moment to appreciate like people and the jobs they do and the work they do. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's why I think it's important.
I mean, for me, it means celebration of working people.
Yeah, it's just a day off and that's it. We don't do much about it.
Like, do I think Labor Day is important? I'll take Labor Day as a day off any day. And yeah, a day for the workers, just to celebrate the workers in general. Oh, I'm supposed to speak into the microphone here. Totally, day to celebrate the workers.
I guess I've never really thought about it. I think it's kind of become a commercial opportunity for people to take the day off and to buy stuff. And
it's not so much about labor anymore, huh?
No, I don't think so.
I wish Labor Day was more of a political holiday where people actually took the time to learn about labor strikes and the fight for workers' rights in the United States.
I'm thinking about probably two things. One is how my work can contribute, can help others. And also I have always been thinking about, how the work of my parents, who are not, in this country anyway, but they work hard, and how their work, had made me, had made a lot of things possible for me.
Labor Day is designed for the working people, and obviously, if you want to be
you want to talk about labor in that regard, you know, a lot of people, we celebrated, but I think we lost track of, you know, fighting for the actual labor, you know.
Well, I would say that people aren't necessarily very educated about the labor unions and how things came about, and they should probably do a little more research on that so that they understand why they have a 40 hours per week work week.
Celebrates hard working and passing laws where they can't use child labor and everybody gets a fair wage, is the best of my recollection.
You know, we have a tendency to forget about what the different days mean, not just Labor Day. But yeah, I think if there was an effort to teach folks what Labor Day was all about, not just the United States, though, all over the world.
So many people get to enjoy Labor Day, but so many people also don't, specifically immigrants, low-income people, not really many days off that they could take. It's kind of a privilege to be able to.
I think in general, people who work should have a lot of say about the workplace.
I think in the United States we romanticize and we like a day off, but we don't think about the people who actually had to fight for us to get, 8-hour workday, overtime pay, and other basic rights.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important day. I mean, it basically, if I don't remember how it reads, but it basically guarantees everybody's going to get a fair and similar wage, and that you have to have fair labor practices. You can't use child labor, you can't work so many hours in a day, things of that nature.
Obviously, it's important and significant for a reason. That's why we're given the holiday to celebrate it. But I don't think that it crosses anyone's mind. I think they just appreciate a 3-day weekend from their typical work week.
That's the coolest thing about Labor Day, is that it's just a day set aside for the workers. Like, it doesn't commemorate anybody else, just the people.
There's a lot to fight for on Labor Day, and I think people should be more conscientious of all workers' rights.